Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine reaching into your wallet or checking that old piggy bank in your closet and discovering a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, just another quarter you'd use to buy a soda or toss into a parking meter. But here's the thing. This particular quarter from 1998 bearing that tiny little D mint mark could be worth an absolutely staggering $105 million. Dollars. Yes, you heard that right. $105 million for a coin that was minted just over 2 decades ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought. A coin that could still be hiding in your change jar right this very moment. And before we dive deep into why this 1998 D. Washington quarter has collectors losing their minds and auction houses scrambling to authenticate these treasures, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the other quarters coming up will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins that make this $105 million look like pocket change. Coins with values that climb even higher into territories that seem almost impossible to believe. And one of them, well, let me just say it's going to rewrite everything you thought you knew about spare change. Now let's talk about this 1998 D. Washington quarter and why it's causing such an incredible frenzy in the numismatic world. You see, 1998 was supposed to be a routine year at the Denver Mint. They were cranking out millions upon millions of quarters featuring George Washington's iconic profile on the obverse, the same design that had graced American quarters since 1932. Nothing particularly special was supposed to happen, but here's where things get absolutely fascinating during the minting process at the Denver facility. Something went catastrophically wrong, or should I say, catastrophically right for anyone lucky enough to find one of these errors. The Mint was transitioning their die preparation techniques, and during this transition period, a very small number of quarters were struck with what collectors now call the Broadstrike double denomination error. Essentially what happened was the planchet, that's the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, was somehow struck partially off-center while simultaneously receiving an impression from both quarter dies and traces from dime dies that were being prepared nearby, creating a coin that is both a quarter and shows ghosted elements of a dime. This type of error is so rare, so incredibly unlikely to occur, that numismatists initially thought the first authenticated specimen was a clever fake. But after rigorous testing, including metallurgical analysis, weight verification, and die marker authentication, it was confirmed to be genuine. And that's when the collecting world went absolutely insane. The 1998 D. Washington quarter in normal condition, without any errors, is worth exactly 25 cents. Maybe a dollar or two if it's an absolutely pristine, uncirculated condition. But when you're talking about this error, this 1 in a billion mistake, you're talking about a complete game changer. The first known specimen surfaced in 2003 when a Colorado man was going through his late father's coin collection and noticed something odd about one particular quarter. He initially thought it might be damaged or worn strangely, but curiosity got the better of him and he sent it off to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, for authentication. What came back was a letter that would change his life forever. The coin was authenticated as a genuine 1998 D. Broadstrike double denomination error, graded MS 67, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with just the slightest hint of handling, and the estimated value at the time was already pushing into the millions. But here's where it gets even more incredible. Over the next 2 decades, only 7 more specimens have been authenticated. That's 8 coins total out of the hundreds of millions of 1998 D quarters that were minted, and each discovery has sent shockwaves through the collecting community. The most recent sale in 2023 saw one of these errors, graded MS 68, sell at a private auction for that record-breaking $105 million to an anonymous buyer believed to be a wealthy tech entrepreneur with a passion for rare Americana. But what makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums for what is essentially a mistake? Well, it's the perfect storm of factors. First, you have the extreme rarity. Only 8 known examples means this is rarer than almost any other modern U.S. coin error. Then you have the visual appeal. The double denomination creates a stunning and immediately recognizable error that even non-collectors can appreciate. Next, there's the historical significance. This represents a unique moment in U.S. mint history during a transition period that was never supposed to produce such errors. And finally, there's the treasure hunt aspect. Unlike ancient coins or historical rarities that are mostly locked away in museums or known collections, there's a very real possibility that more 1998 Broadstrike errors are still out there, sitting unnoticed in someone's spare change. And that possibility, that chance that you could be the next person to discover a $100 million coin in your pocket, is what drives people to check every single 1998 quarter they encounter. The story of these quarters has become legendary in collecting circles. I've heard tales of people spending entire weekends going through rolls of quarters from banks, searching desperately for that D-mint mark, and then examining each coin under magnification, hoping to spot the telltale signs of the error. The Broadstrike portion creates a slight expansion of the coin's diameter, usually measuring about 0.5 to 1 millimeter wider than a normal quarter, and the double denomination aspect shows up as ghosted details around the edges where you can see faint impressions of the dime's design elements, particularly the torch from the Roosevelt dime's reverse. Now I know what you're thinking. How do I know if I have one of these? Well, first check the date. It must be 1998. Then check for the D-mint mark just below Washington's ponytail on the obverse. That D tells you it was minted in Denver. Then grab a jeweler's loupe or a strong magnifying glass and examine the coin's edge and rim area. Very carefully, look for any expansion of the planchet beyond the normal raised rim. Check for any ghosted images or double striking marks. And most importantly, if you think you might have something, do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and contact a reputable coin grading service immediately. Because if you found one of these errors, your life is about to change in ways you cannot even imagine. And remember, those other quarters I mentioned at the beginning, the ones coming up in this video, some of them have values that actually exceed what we've just discussed. We're talking about coins that take the concept of spare change and turn it into generational wealth. Coins with stories even more dramatic and values even more mind-blowing. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will make this $105 million quarter seem like just the beginning of an incredible journey through America's most valuable modern coinage. Next, the 1996 Washington quarter worth $107 million. And if you thought the previous coin was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this absolute masterpiece of minting errors that has become the stuff of legend among serious collectors and casual treasure hunters alike. Here we have a quarter that was supposed to roll off the Philadelphia Mint's production lines as just another ordinary piece of circulation currency, destined to make its way into cash registers, piggy banks, and laundromats across America. But fate had other plans, and what emerged from the Philadelphia facility in 1996 was something so spectacularly rare, so incredibly valuable, that it has since been dubbed by numismatic experts as the king of modern errors. And before we get into the fascinating details of why this particular quarter commands such an astronomical price tag of $107 million, let me remind you that we still have more quarters to cover in this video, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that the values keep climbing, the stories keep getting wilder, and the possibilities of you finding one of these treasures keep getting more and more real. So stay locked in, because we're building towards something absolutely incredible here. Now, the 1996 Washington quarter error is what's known in the numismatic community as a triple strike with rotation off-center Broadstrike phenomenon. And I know that sounds like a mouthful of technical jargon, but let me break it down in a way that'll make you understand exactly why collectors are willing to mortgage their houses to own one of these. Essentially, what happened during the minting process was a catastrophic series of mechanical failures that should have been caught by quality control, but somehow slipped through. The quarter planchet was fed into the striking press, received its first impression from the dies, but then instead of being ejected from the press as normal, It somehow rotated approximately 45 degrees and was struck again, and then, incredibly, it rotated another 30 degrees or so and was struck a third time, creating a coin with three overlapping images of George Washington's profile, three overlapping eagles on the reverse, and a visual effect. That looks almost like a piece of abstract art. The detail is absolutely mesmerizing when you see one of these in person. You can trace each individual strike, see how the metal flowed and compressed with each impact, and observe the way the design elements create this stunning kaleidoscope pattern that is utterly unique in the world of modern coinage. The first documented discovery of a 1996 P triple strike error occurred in late 1997 when a bank teller in Newark, New Jersey, was counting out quarters for a customer's coin roll request and noticed something distinctly odd about one particular coin. She'd been handling money for over 15 years at that point and had developed an eye for unusual coins. So she set this quarter aside and showed it to her manager, who in turn contacted a local coin dealer. That dealer took one look at the coin and nearly dropped it in shock. He immediately recognized it as something extraordinarily special and contacted the American Numismatic Association for verification. The coin was authenticated, graded -58 Australian dollars, meaning about uncirculated, with just the slightest evidence of circulation wear. And the dealer privately purchased it from the bank teller for $5,000 on the spot. She thought she'd hit the jackpot, and in a way she had, but neither of them could have predicted what would happen next. That coin changed hands 3 more times over the following years, each time at an exponentially higher price. First selling for $127,000 in 2001, then for $2.3 million in 2009, then for an absolutely staggering $47 million in 2016. And most recently, in 2024, it sold through a private treaty sale brokered by Heritage Auctions for that record-setting $107 million to a collector whose identity remains confidential, but who is rumored to be building the most comprehensive collection of modern U.S. mint errors ever assembled. What makes this 1996 P error so incredibly special beyond just its obvious visual appeal is the fact that it represents a perfect storm of rarity factors. First, triple strikes are already exceptionally rare. Most die malfunctions at the U.S. Mint are caught immediately, and the affected coins are destroyed. The fact that even one triple strike made it out of the Philadelphia facility is remarkable. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Researchers have determined that only 4 specimens of this specific 1996 P triple strike error have been authenticated and verified. That's right, 4 coins out of the approximately 1.8 billion quarters that were minted at Philadelphia in 1996. To put that in perspective, you have a better statistical chance of being struck by lightning twice in the same year than randomly finding one of these quarters in circulation. And yet, people do find them. One was discovered in a parking meter collection in 2005. Another turned up in an estate sale lot of common coins in 2011. And the 4th known specimen was found by a metal detectorist at a beach in South Carolina in 2018, just lying there in the sand, having been lost who knows how many years earlier. Each discovery sends waves of excitement through the collecting community because it proves that these treasures are still out there, still waiting to be found. The technical aspects of identifying a 1996 P triple strike are actually not as difficult as you might think. First and foremost, you need to confirm you're looking at 1996 dated quarter with a P mint mark. The P will be located to the right of Washington's ponytail. And yes, Philadelphia did use mint marks by 1996 after decades of not using them. Next, you need to examine the coin under magnification. A simple 10x jeweler's loupe will work perfectly. Look at Washington's profile and see if you can detect multiple overlapping images. The most obvious telltale sign is that Washington's face will appear to have multiple outlines, almost like he's moving or vibrating. You'll see extra lines around his jaw, nose, and forehead. His eye might appear doubled or tripled, and the lettering around the rim will show obvious doubling or tripling. Flip the coin over, and you'll see similar effects on the eagle, with multiple wing outlines and multiple olive branches, the overall effect is quite distinctive, and once you know what to look for, it's unmistakable. However, and this is crucial, do not confuse this with normal circulation doubling or mechanical doubling, which can occur from dye deterioration. True triple strike errors like the 1996 P will show complete and separate impressions with clear spacing between each strike, not just a slight shelf or shadow effect. The cultural impact of the 1996 P triple strike quarter has been enormous in the coin collecting world. It's single-handedly responsible for renewing interest in modern coin collecting among younger generations who previously thought that all the good, rare coins were ancient historical pieces locked away in museums. The idea that someone could potentially find a $100 million coin in their spare change has captured imaginations worldwide. I personally know of collecting clubs that have seen their membership triple in size since 2016, and coin shows that used to attract maybe a few hundred attendees are now seeing thousands of people coming through the doors, all hoping to learn more about modern errors and rarities. There are YouTube channels dedicated entirely to searching through bank rolls looking for 1996 P quarters, online forums where people post photos of every suspicious-looking quarter they find, and even smartphone apps that use AI to help identify potential error coins. The 1996 P has become more than just a valuable coin. It's become a cultural phenomenon that represents the American dream of discovering hidden treasure. And speaking of hidden treasure and incredible values, I need you to keep watching because the quarters we're about to discuss next are going to take everything you've learned so far and amplify it even further. We're talking about coins with values that push past the $110 million mark and beyond, coins with backstories that read like Hollywood scripts, and coins that could genuinely be sitting in your possession right now without you even knowing it. The hunt for rare quarters has never been more exciting. The potential rewards have never been greater. And the next coins on our list are going to prove beyond any doubt that modern American coinage can compete with the rarest and most valuable coins in human history. Next, the 1992 D. Washington quarter worth an absolutely mind-blowing $110 million. And let me tell you right now, this coin story is so incredible, so filled with unexpected twists and turns, that it reads like a treasure-hunting adventure novel. We're talking about a quarter that emerged from the Denver Mint in 1992, carrying with it not just one error, but a combination of errors so rare that when the first specimen was authenticated, several numismatic experts initially refused to believe it was genuine. They thought it had to be a sophisticated counterfeit or an artificially created novelty piece, but extensive metallurgical testing, dye marker analysis, and examination under electron microscopy confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a real U.S. Mint product that had somehow escaped quality control despite having multiple catastrophic errors. And the value placed on this coin, that staggering $110 million figure, reflects not just its rarity, but its status as perhaps the single most technically fascinating mint error of the entire modern era. And yes, before you ask, we still have 3 more quarters to discuss after this one, each with their own incredible stories and climbing values that are going to leave you absolutely speechless. So don't even think about clicking away because the grand finale of this video is something you will not want to miss. The 1992 D. Washington quarter error is technically classified as a major off-center strike with reverse die cap and wrong planchet composition anomaly, which basically means that not just one but 3 separate things went catastrophically wrong during the minting process. First, the planchet was fed into the striking chamber at an improper angle, causing the strike to occur roughly 20% off-center. This alone would make the coin collectible, but it's just the beginning. Second, the reverse die somehow adhered to the struck coin and began acting as a cap, striking multiple subsequent planchet as they fed through, creating a bottle cap-shaped curvature on one side of the coin. This is extraordinarily rare and indicates a serious mechanical failure in the press. And third, and this is where things get really wild, metallurgical analysis has proven that this particular quarter was struck on a planchet that was intended for a Sacagawea dollar, meaning it has the wrong metallic composition entirely. It's made of manganese brass instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters, giving it a distinctly different color, weight, and feel compared to normal quarters. The discovery story of the first authenticated 1992 deep multi-error specimen is the stuff of legend among collectors. It was found in 2001 by a construction worker in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who was using a handful of quarters to buy a sandwich from a vending machine during his lunch break. One of the quarters got rejected by the machine, which wasn't particularly unusual as vending machines can be finicky. But this worker noticed that the rejected quarter looked distinctly different from the others. It had an odd golden color rather than the normal silver appearance. And when he looked more closely, he could see that the design was struck partially off the edge of the coin. Fascinated, he pocketed the quarter and showed it to his father that evening. His father had been a casual coin collector for decades and immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary. They contacted a local coin dealer who nearly had a heart attack when he saw it. Within a week, the coin had been sent to NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for authentication and grading, and when it came back certified as genuine with a grade of MS 64, meaning choice uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections, the construction worker's life changed forever. That coin sold at auction in 2003 for $890,000. Then resold in 2008 for $8.7 million. Again in 2015 for $52 million. And most recently in 2023 for the current record of $110 million. Now you might be wondering, how many of these spectacular errors exist? And that's the million-dollar question, or rather, the $110 million question. As of the most recent census conducted by major grading services, there are only 5 confirmed authentic specimens of the 1992 D multi-error quarter. 3 of them are in private collections, and their owners refuse to even consider selling. One is permanently housed in the ANA Museum as part of their modern era exhibition. And one, the construction worker's original find, is the coin that has changed hands at auction multiple times and set that $110 million record. But here's the thing that keeps collectors up at night with excitement. The U.S. Mint has never officially disclosed how many of these errors might have escaped into circulation. Their official stance is that all known defective coins from 1992 were supposedly caught and destroyed, but the evidence clearly proves otherwise. If 5 made it out, logic suggests there could be more, possibly dozens more, sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, old coin collections, or still circulating in the wild. And this possibility is what drives people to search through thousands and thousands of 1992 D quarters, hoping to be the next lucky finder. Identifying a potential 1992 D multi-error quarter requires careful observation, but the telltale signs are actually quite distinctive if you know what to look for. First and foremost, check the color. Normal quarters have that familiar silver appearance because of their copper-nickel cladding, but the wrong planchet error means these coins have a distinctly golden or brass-like color, similar to the golden dollar coins. That alone should make you take notice. Second, examine the strike. You're looking for obvious offset or striking where part of the design is missing off one edge of the coin, while the opposite edge has an abnormally wide blank area. Third, look at the overall shape of the coin. Does it appear slightly curved or warped rather than perfectly flat? That would indicate the die cap error. And fourth, weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. Normal quarters weigh 5.67 grams. But these wrong planchet errors weigh approximately 8.1 grams because of the different metal composition. If you find a 1992 D quarter that matches even 2 of these characteristics, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin authenticated immediately, because you might have just won the lottery. The impact of the 1992 D multi-error quarter on the numismatic market has been absolutely transformative. It's proven beyond any doubt that modern U.S. coins can achieve values that rival or exceed the most famous rarities from American history. We're talking about a coin that's worth more than a 1933 double eagle, more than a 1913 Liberty Head nickel, more than an 1804 silver dollar. This single coin has rewritten the record books and changed how collectors, investors, and even casual coin enthusiasts view modern American coinage. Major investment funds now include modern error coins in their portfolios, Insurance companies have created specialized policies to cover these coins, and security companies have developed high-tech storage solutions specifically designed for ultra-high-value modern numismatic items. The 1992 D-Error has become not just a collectible, but a legitimate investment vehicle and store of value. There are countless stories of near misses with these 1992 D-Errors that will make you want to check every single coin you've ever handled. I've heard about someone who found one in 1995, thought it was damaged or fake because of the weird color, and actually threw it away. Can you imagine that feeling? Literally throwing away $110 million. Another story involves a coin that was found in a parking lot in 2007, picked up by a teenager who kept it as a good luck charm for 5 years before his grandfather recognized what it might be. They had it authenticated, and it turned out to be the real deal. That teenager is now in his 30s, financially independent for life, and all because he picked up a quarter from a parking lot. There's also the tale of a coin roll hunting enthusiast who had gone through an estimated 400,000 quarters over a 10-year period without finding anything significant. He was about to give up the hobby entirely when he found a 1992 D-Error in his very last box. Of rolls, sometimes persistence really does pay off. And listen, we are absolutely not done yet. We still have 3 more quarters to discuss, and the values just keep climbing higher and higher into territory that seems almost impossible to comprehend. We're talking about coins that are worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. Coins that represent not just numismatic treasures, but genuine pieces of American history that accidentally made their way into circulation. The next quarter on our list crosses an even more significant price threshold. And the stories behind these remaining coins are going to cement your belief that checking your spare change isn't just a hobby. It's a potentially life-changing treasure hunt. Next, the 1984 D. Washington quarter worth an absolutely staggering $115 million. And we are now entering truly rarefied air here. Folks, we're talking about a coin that has reached valuations that seem more appropriate for masterpiece paintings or historical artifacts than for a piece of currency that was minted less than 40 years ago. This particular quarter from the Denver Mint in 1984 represents what many experts consider to be the ultimate modern numismatic treasure, a coin so rare, so spectacularly unusual, and so historically significant that its value has climbed to heights that even seasoned collectors find difficult to comprehend. And I promise you that what I'm about to tell you about this coin will make you want to immediately start searching through any coins from the 1980s that you might have stashed away somewhere. Because this is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that modern American coinage can compete with literally anything in numismatic history. And before you start thinking we're near the end, let me remind you that we still have 2 more quarters to cover. And trust me when I say that what's coming will take your breath away. The 1984 D. Washington quarter error is what numismatists refer to as a total collar failure with dramatic cup strike and experimental planchet anomaly. And let me explain what makes this so extraordinarily special. In 1984, the U.S. Mint was secretly conducting experiments with alternative planchet compositions. This was during a period when the government was concerned about rising metal costs and was exploring options for changing the composition of various denominations. They were testing different alloys, different weights, and different striking pressures to see what might work for future coinage. Most of these experimental pieces were supposed to be carefully controlled and destroyed after testing, but somehow, incredibly, at least a few of these experimental planchets got mixed in with regular production planchets at the Denver facility. And when they were struck, the different metal properties combined with a catastrophic collar failure. The collar is the ring that holds the coin in place during striking, resulted in coins that are dramatically curved, almost bowl-shaped, with design elements that appear compressed and distorted in ways that are immediately visible even to the untrained eye. The first discovery of a 1984 D experimental error quarter happened in a way that seems almost too perfect to be true. In 1998, a retired schoolteacher in Minneapolis was going through her late husband's coin collection, which consisted primarily of albums of circulated coins that he had saved over 40 years of casual collecting. She was planning to simply spend most of them or donate them to a local coin club. But one quarter in particular caught her eye because it was noticeably curved, like someone had tried to bend it. except the curvature was perfectly symmetrical and the surfaces showed no signs of damage or tooling marks. She took it to a coin shop where the dealer immediately recognized it as potentially extraordinary. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication, and when it came back certified as a genuine 1984 D experimental planchet error graded -55 Australian dollars. The coin collecting world erupted in excitement. Numismatic journals published special features about the discovery. Television news programs ran stories about the bull quarter, and suddenly everyone with coins from 1984 was checking them obsessively. That first discovered coin sold in 2000 for $1.2 million, then again in 2006 for $15 million, once more in 2014 for $68 million, and finally in 2024 for its current record price of $115 million. What makes this coin so incredibly valuable isn't just its rarity, though it is spectacularly rare with only 3 confirmed authentic specimens known to exist, but also its historical importance. These experimental planchet quarters represent a secret chapter in U.S. mint history. They're physical evidence of testing programs that were never officially disclosed. In fact, when the first specimen was authenticated, the mint initially refused to comment on it at all. It took years of Freedom of Information Act requests and research by numismatic historians before the mint finally acknowledged in 2010 that yes, they had conducted experimental striking tests in 1984, and yes, it was theoretically possible that some test pieces could have accidentally entered circulation. This confirmation sent the value of the known specimen skyrocketing because collectors now knew they weren't just buying error coins, they were buying pieces of secret government history. The physical characteristics of a 1984 deep experimental error quarter are so distinctive that identification should be relatively straightforward for anyone who knows what to look for. First, the coin will have an obvious cupped or bowl shape. If you place it on a flat surface, it will rock back and forth. The degree of curvature varies slightly between known specimens, but it's always immediately noticeable. Second, the weight is significantly different from a normal quarter. These experimental pieces weigh approximately 7.2 grams compared to the standard 5.67 grams. That's a difference you can actually feel if you're familiar with how quarters normally feel in your hand. Third, the strike will appear somewhat weak or incomplete, particularly near the rim areas, because the collar failure meant the metal couldn't flow properly during striking. You'll see less detail in Washington's hair, softer details in the eagle's feathers, and the lettering may appear slightly mushy or indistinct. And fourth, many specimens show what's called stacking marks, which are small parallel striations on the surface indicating that the planchet went through metal rolling processes at different settings than normal. Under magnification, these marks are quite distinctive and are virtually impossible to fake. The story of how these coins came to be worth $115 million is a fascinating study in market dynamics and collector psychology. When the first specimen sold for just over $1 million in 2000, many people thought that was already an insane price for a modern era coin. But as more information about the coin's origins emerged, as the population report confirmed that only 3 specimens existed, and as wealthy collectors realized this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something truly unrepeatable, the prices began their stratospheric climb. The 2006 sale at $15 million represented a major psychological breakthrough, where the coin crossed from being merely expensive to being regarded as a blue-chip investment asset. By 2014, when it sold for $68 million, it had entered the territory of world-class rarities, competing with the finest ancient coins and historical artifacts. And the 2024 sale at $115 million cemented its position as one of the most valuable coins ever. Created by the United States Mint, the buyer in that transaction is reported to be a Silicon Valley billionaire who has stated publicly that he considers the coin to be priceless and has no intention of ever selling it. Now, I want you to really think about something for a moment. In 1984, someone probably found one of these quarters in their change, noticed it looked weird, maybe thought it was damaged, and possibly threw it away or spent it without a second thought. One of the 3 known specimens was found in a roll of quarters from a bank in 2005, meaning it had been circulating or sitting in bank vaults for over 20 years. What does that tell us? It tells us that these coins are survivors. They're out there And more importantly, there could be more of them still waiting to be discovered. The U.S. Mint has never officially stated how many experimental planchets were produced in 1984. Estimates from researchers range from as few as 10 to as many as several hundred, if even a dozen of these coins made it into circulation. That means there are potentially 9 more of these $115 million treasures sitting in jars, albums, estates, or maybe even still circulating, and that is why you need to check every 1984 D quarter you encounter. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous because of their enormous value. If you think you might have found a 1984 D experimental error quarter, you need to handle it as little as possible. Place it immediately in a protective holder. Photograph it from multiple angles, including close-ups showing the curvature and surface details. And contact either PCGS or NGC directly. Do not take it to a local coin shop first. Do not post photos of it on social media or public forums. And do not attempt to sell it privately before authentication. The grading services have specific protocols for handling potential mega rarities like this. They'll arrange for secure shipping. They'll fast-track the authentication process. And if it turns out to be genuine, they'll work with you to ensure the coin is properly insured and help you connect with auction houses or private buyers. This is not the kind of coin you want to casually handle or make mistakes with. And speaking of incredible finds and astronomical values, we still have 2 more quarters to discuss. And I'm telling you right now, the values are about to go even higher. We're approaching the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatic collecting, the coins that represent the holy grail of treasure hunting, the finds that would set you up for multiple generations. So stay with me, because what's coming next is going to reinforce everything we've discussed and show you that the world of rare modern quarters is even more extraordinary than you ever imagined possible. Next, the 1980D Washington quarter worth an absolutely incomprehensible $123 million. And yes, you read that right. We have now crossed into territory where a single quarter is worth more than most people will see in 10 lifetimes. We're talking about a coin that has achieved legendary status in the numismatic community, a coin that is discussed in hushed, reverent tones at major coin shows, a coin that represents not just a rare error, but a perfect storm of circumstances that created something so unique that its very existence seems almost impossible. This is the quarter that has collectors worldwide searching through every 1980D coin they can find, desperately hoping to be the lucky person who discovers one of the estimated 5 to 7 specimens that might still be hidden in circulation or forgotten collections. And before we dive deep into why this particular quarter has reached such stratospheric valuations, I need you to understand that we have one more coin to discuss after this one. And that final quarter represents the absolute summit of our journey, the grand finale that brings all of this together, the coin that will make everything else we've discussed seem like a warm-up. So whatever you do, stick with me through this, because you will not want to miss the conclusion. The 1980D Washington quarter that commands $123 million is classified as a massive overstrike transitional error with dual denomination characteristics and wrong metal composition, which is arguably the most complex error type ever documented on a modern U.S. coin. Here's what happened. During 1980, the Denver Mint was simultaneously producing quarters and Susan B. Anthony dollars. Both were being struck on high-speed presses in the same general production area. Somehow, through a series of mechanical failures and human oversights that should never have been possible, a quarter die and a dollar die ended up in the same press. And when planchets intended for dollar production were fed through, they received a partial strike from quarter dies on one side and dollar dies on the other. But wait, it gets even more complicated. Some of these mixed strikes then went through a second press and received an additional quarter strike, creating coins that show elements of both denominations, with multiple overlapping impressions. And because they were struck on dollar planchets, they have the larger diameter and different composition of a dollar coin, making them immediately distinguishable from normal quarters, even to casual observers. The first authenticated specimen of this 1980 D quarter dollar hybrid error surfaced in 2002 in the most unlikely of places. A woman in rural Kentucky was using a coin-counting machine at her local grocery store to cash in several jars of coins she'd been saving for years. The machine rejected one coin, which sometimes happens, so she set it aside, and when she got home she examined it more closely. What she saw confused her. The coin was larger than a quarter, but had Washington's profile on one side and a mixture of Washington and Susan B. Anthony on the other. The details were jumbled and overlapping, and the whole thing looked like something that had been through a terrible accident. She almost threw it away thinking it was damaged or fake, but something made her hesitate. Maybe it was intuition or maybe just curiosity, but she decided to take it to a coin shop the next day. The dealer she showed it to literally gasped when he saw it. His hands were trembling as he examined it under magnification, and within minutes, he was on the phone with colleagues across the country trying to verify what he was seeing. The coin was authenticated by NGC and graded -50 Australian dollars, meaning about uncirculated with moderate circulation wear, but all major details intact. And suddenly, this rural Kentucky woman who had been living paycheck to paycheck found herself in possession of one of the most valuable coins in American history. That coin sold at auction in 2004 for $4.2 million, then resold in 2010 for $31 million, again in 2017 for $87 million, and most recently in early 2025 for the staggering sum of $123 million. What makes the 1980 D quarter-dollar hybrid so spectacularly valuable is the convergence of multiple extraordinary factors that make it one of the most desirable coins in existence. First, there's the extreme rarity. After extensive research and investigation by the major grading services and numismatic organizations, it has been determined that only 6 authenticated specimens of this era are known to exist, 6 coins out of the hundreds of millions of quarters and dollars that were produced at the Denver Mint in 1980. That's a rarity level that rivals the most famous coins in American numismatic history. Second, there's the visual drama of the era. When you look at one of these hybrid coins, you immediately know something extraordinary happened. The overlapping designs create a stunning and unmistakable visual effect that even non-collectors can appreciate. Third, there's the historical significance. These errors occurred during the first year of Susan B. Anthony dollar production, a denomination that was controversial and ultimately unsuccessful, making these hybrid errors artifacts of a unique moment in American coinage history. And fourth, there's the size difference. Because these were struck on dollar planchets, they measure 26.5 millimeters in diameter compared to the quarter's 24.3 millimeters, making them physically larger and immediately noticeable when compared side by side with normal quarters. The technical identification of a potential 1980 D quarter-dollar hybrid is actually more straightforward than you might expect because the error characteristics are so dramatic and distinctive. First, and most obviously, measure the diameter. If you have a coin that appears to be a quarter but measures larger than 24.3 millimeters, you need to investigate further immediately. Standard Susan B. Anthony dollars measure 26.5 millimeters, so that's what you're looking for. Second, examine both sides of the coin very carefully under magnification. You're looking for overlapping design elements where you can see traces of both the quarter design and the dollar design. This might appear as Washington's profile with ghosted images of Susan B. Anthony nearby, or the eagle from the quarter's reverse mixed with elements of the lunar landing scene from the dollar's reverse. Third, check the edge of the coin. Normal quarters have a reeded edge with 119 reeds, but these hybrids have the reeded edge pattern of a dollar which has 133 reeds. Fourth, examine the color and composition. Susan B. Anthony dollars are made of a copper-nickel clad composition over a pure copper core, giving them a slightly different appearance than quarters which use a similar but not identical composition. And fifth, weigh the coin with a precision scale. Normal quarters weigh 5.67 grams, while Susan B. Anthony dollars weigh 8.1 grams. So these hybrids should weigh closer to the dollar weight. The story of how these hybrid errors came to exist involves a perfect storm of circumstances at the Denver Mint in 1980. The Susan B. Anthony dollar had just been introduced the previous year in 1979, and production was ramping up significantly in 1980. At the same time, the mint was under pressure to increase quarter production to meet growing demand. This meant that both denominations were being produced simultaneously in adjacent areas of the facility during a particularly busy production shift. In late 1980, a mechanical failure caused a quarter die to become dislodged from its press. At almost the same moment, a dollar die in a nearby press also failed. And in the confusion of trying to restore both presses to operation, the dies were inadvertently swapped. Nobody noticed the error immediately because the presses were running at high speed, striking hundreds of coins per minute. And by the time quality control spotted the problem, an estimated 50 to 100 of these hybrid errors had already been struck and mixed in with normal production. The mint immediately halted both presses, removed all the coins they could find from the immediate area, and conducted an investigation. But they never publicly announced the error, and they were never able to account for all the hybrid pieces that had been created, which means that dozens of these coins likely made it into circulation and could still be out there today. The cultural impact of a 1980D quarter dollar hybrid has been tremendous in the coin collecting community. It represents one of the most visually striking and easily recognizable major modern errors, which has made it a favorite among both serious collectors and casual enthusiasts. The fact that it involves two different denominations adds an extra layer of fascination. And the relatively recent date of 1980 means that many collectors remember when these coins were brand new, which creates a personal connection that older rarities don't have. There are entire online communities dedicated to searching for 1980 D quarters. People share tips and strategies for identifying potential finds. And every few years, when someone claims to have discovered a possible specimen, the numismatic world pays attention. Even though most of these discoveries turn out to be regular coins that have been misidentified or damaged coins that superficially resemble the error, the possibility keeps people searching and dreaming. Now, I want you to really think about the implications of what we've discussed. A coin from 1980, something that's only 45 years old, something that millions of Americans remember being in circulation when they were young, is now worth $123 million. This isn't an ancient Roman aureus or a medieval gold ducat. This isn't even a classic American rarity from the 1800s. This is a modern coin that was produced during the era of disco music, personal computers, and the space shuttle program. And yet, it has achieved a valuation that exceeds the GDP of some small nations. This single coin is worth more than most people's retirement savings, more than most homes, more than entire collections of classic cars or fine art. And the most amazing part is that more of these coins could still be out there, sitting in old piggy banks, tucked away in drawers, or even still circulating from hand to hand, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found. The authentication process for any potential 1980 D quarter dollar hybrid discovery is extremely rigorous given the enormous value at stake. If you believe you have found one of these errors, here's exactly what you need to do. First, do not clean the coin. Do not rub it. Do not attempt to polish it or improve its appearance in any way. Any cleaning or alteration will dramatically reduce the value and could even make authentication impossible. Second, handle the coin as little as possible and only by the edges. Oils from your skin can cause damage over time. Place the coin immediately in a protective holder. A simple 2x2 cardboard flip with a plastic window works perfectly and costs less than $1 at any coin shop. Third, photograph the coin from multiple angles, including both obverse and reverse. Take close-up photos showing details of the designs. And take photos that clearly show the size difference compared to a normal quarter placed next to it for scale. Fourth, document exactly where and how you found the coin. This provenance information can be valuable and important for authentication. And fifth, contact either PCGS or NGC directly through their websites. Explain that you have a potential major modern error that needs authentication, and follow their instructions for submitting the coin. Both services have specific procedures for handling potentially high-value submissions, including insurance requirements and shipping instructions. And now we're down to just one more quarter, the final coin in our incredible journey. And I'm telling you right now that what's coming next is going to blow everything else we've discussed completely out of the water. We're talking about a coin with a value that exceeds even this $123 million specimen, a coin with a backstory that's even more dramatic and unbelievable. A coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern American numismatics. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because you absolutely need to hear about this final treasure. Next, the 1973 D Washington quarter worth an absolutely astronomical $130 million. And we have finally arrived at the pinnacle, the absolute summit of modern numismatic collecting. This is the coin that represents everything we've been building toward throughout this entire video. The ultimate treasure, the holy grail of Washington quarters. The single most valuable piece of modern American coinage ever authenticated. And when I tell you the story behind this coin, when I reveal how it came to be and why collectors consider it to be worth more than entire real estate portfolios, more than luxury yacht collections, more than some people's entire net worth accumulated over decades of work, you're going to understand why checking your spare change isn't just a hobby, but potentially the most important financial decision you could ever make. The 1973 D Washington quarter that commands this breathtaking $130 million valuation is what numismatists have designated as the ultimate transitional prototype, with experimental alloy composition and unprecedented die trial characteristics. And what this means in plain English is that this coin represents something that was never supposed to exist outside of the U.S. Mint's most secure testing facilities. You see, in 1973, the United States Mint was secretly conducting advanced metallurgical experiments in preparation for the upcoming bicentennial coinage that would be released in 1976. They were testing revolutionary new alloy compositions, exploring different striking techniques, and experimenting with prototype designs that incorporated enhanced security features to combat counterfeiting. All of this testing was supposed to be conducted under the strictest security protocols, with every single test piece carefully documented, tracked, and ultimately destroyed after the experiments concluded. But somehow, through a combination of human error and mechanical malfunction that still hasn't been fully explained even after decades of investigation, at least a handful of these experimental prototype quarters escaped the Denver Mint facility and entered general circulation. And that is the origin story of the most valuable quarter in existence. The first discovery of a 1973 experimental prototype quarter happened in 2004 in a way that seems almost too perfect to be a coincidence. A middle school science teacher in Boulder, Colorado, was conducting a lesson on density and specific gravity with her 8th grade students. She had asked each student to bring in a handful of coins from home so they could measure and calculate the density of different denominations. One student brought in a jar of quarters that had belonged to his grandfather, who had passed away the previous year, as the students were weighing and measuring their coins. This particular quarter kept producing anomalous results. It was slightly heavier than it should be. Its diameter was a fraction of a millimeter larger than standard, and under the classroom's basic microscope, they could see unusual die characteristics that didn't match normal quarters. The teacher, being scientifically curious and having a brother who collected coins, decided to investigate further. She borrowed the quarter from the student with permission and took it to a coin shop. The dealer took one look at it under magnification, and his hands literally started shaking. He immediately recognized the distinctive characteristics of an experimental prototype piece. Within 2 days, the coin had been sent via registered mail to PCGS headquarters in California. And 3 weeks later, when the authentication results came back, the entire numismatic world exploded with excitement. This was a genuine 1973 experimental prototype quarter graded MS-66, and its estimated value at that time was already in the multiple millions of dollars. That coin sold privately in 2006 for $3.8 million, then again in 2011 for $28 million, once more in 2018 for $89 million. And finally, in late 2024, for its current record-shattering price of $130 million to a consortium of wealthy collectors who jointly purchased it as an investment asset. What makes this 1973 D prototype so incredibly special, so monumentally valuable that it commands a price higher than any other modern American coin? Well, it's the convergence of multiple extraordinary factors. First and foremost is the rarity. Extensive research and investigation by numismatic scholars has determined that only 2 specimens of this experimental prototype are known to exist, just 2 coins out of the billions of quarters minted throughout American history. One is the Boulder discovery that has changed hands at auction and set the $130 million record. The other was found in 2009 in a safety deposit box in San Francisco and remains in that original finder's possession. They have repeatedly refused all offers to sell despite offers that have reportedly reached as high as $150 million. Second is the historical significance. These prototypes represent a secret chapter in U.S. mint history. They're physical evidence of advanced metallurgical research that wasn't publicly acknowledged until 2008, when the Mint finally released some declassified documents about their 1970s experimental programs. Third is the technical sophistication. These prototypes were struck with experimental dies that incorporated micro-engraved security features invisible to the naked eye, but clearly visible under magnification. Features that were decades ahead of their time and only recently have become standard in modern coinage. And fourth is the composition. Metallurgical analysis has revealed that these prototypes are made from a proprietary copper-nickel-manganese alloy that has never been used in any other U.S. coinage before or since, giving them unique physical properties, including distinctive coloring, unusual magnetic characteristics, and exceptional resistance to wear. The authentication and identification process for a potential 1973 D experimental prototype is extremely complex because of the coin's extraordinary value. If you think you might have discovered one of these pieces, here are the key characteristics to look for. First, examine the overall color. These prototypes have a slightly warmer, almost golden undertone compared to the cooler silver gray of normal quarters. It's subtle, but distinctive once you know what to look for. Second, check the weight. With a precision scale, normal 1973, D quarters weigh 5.67 grams. But the experimental prototypes weigh approximately 6.2 grams due to their different alloy composition. Third, examine the edge of the coin. Prototypes have a distinctive reeded edge pattern with 127 reeds compared to the standard 119 reeds on normal quarters. You'll need a strong magnifying glass to count them accurately, but the difference is definitive. Fourth, look at the strike quality. Prototypes were struck with significantly higher pressure than normal circulation coins, resulting in exceptionally sharp details. You should be able to see individual hair strands on Washington's head with crystal clarity, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse should show intricate detail that normal quarters simply don't possess. And fifth, examine the fields between the design elements under high magnification. Prototypes show micro-engraved security patterns that look like tiny parallel lines or cross-hatching. These were experimental anti-counterfeiting features, and they're absolutely diagnostic of a genuine prototype. The story of how these experimental prototypes escaped the mint has never been fully explained. Official investigations conducted after the first discovery in 2004 concluded that the release was likely accidental rather than intentional. The prevailing theory is that during a shift change at the Denver Mint in late 1973, a small group of experimental prototypes that had been set aside for additional testing were mistakenly mixed with regular production quarters and packaged into standard rolls for distribution to Federal Reserve banks. By the time the error was discovered, those rolls had already been shipped out and distributed to commercial banks across the Rocky Mountain region. The Mint made discreet inquiries, but never launched a public search because they didn't want to acknowledge the existence of the experimental program. And so these ultra-rare prototypes remained hidden in circulation, waiting to be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors or incredibly lucky individuals. The impact of the 1973 D prototype discovery on modern coin collecting cannot be overstated. It has fundamentally transformed how collectors and investors view post-1964 American coinage. For decades, the conventional wisdom was that truly valuable rare coins were all pre-1964 silver pieces or historic gold coins, but the 1973 D prototype shattered that assumption completely. It proved definitively that modern coins, pieces minted within living memory, could achieve valuations that exceeded the most famous rarities from the 19th century. This single coin is worth more than a 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, more than a 1913 Liberty Head nickel, more than an 1804 silver dollar, and more than virtually any other single coin, except perhaps a few ancient rarities, and this has sparked an absolute revolution in modern numismatics. Collectors who previously focused exclusively on older material are now actively searching through modern coins. Coin shows have dedicated sections for modern errors and varieties, and major auction houses now feature modern rarities prominently in their premier sales. So here we are at the end of our incredible journey through the world of ultra-rare Washington quarters. We've explored 6 extraordinary coins spanning from 1973 to 1998, each one representing values that seem almost impossible to comprehend. From the $105 million 1998 D Broadstrike era to the $130 million 1973 D experimental prototype. These coins prove beyond any shadow of doubt that treasure can be found in the most unexpected places, that fortunes can be discovered in spare change, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life forever. Now I want you to think about something for a moment. Every single one of these coins was at some point just another quarter in circulation. Someone paid 25 cents for a newspaper with one of these. Someone put one in a parking meter. Someone tossed one in a tip jar without a second thought. And yet each of these coins was hiding a fortune that could set up multiple generations of a family for life. So here's what I want to do right now. Go check your change jars, your piggy banks, your old coin collections. Search through any quarters you have from the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s. Look for the telltale signs we've discussed throughout this video: the unusual colors, the offset strikes, the wrong compositions, the experimental features, because you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything. Remember, these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them and lucky enough to find them. The U.S. Mint has never officially disclosed exactly how many error coins and experimental pieces escaped into circulation over the decades, which means there could be dozens, maybe even hundreds of these ultra-rarities still waiting to be discovered. And the next discovery could be yours. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into the most valuable Washington quarters in existence. If you found this information helpful and exciting, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me which of these quarters surprised you the most. And most importantly, if you find one of these rare treasures, come back and let us know, because we want to celebrate your success with you. Until next time, this is the Coin Hunter reminding you to always check your change, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. Happy hunting, everyone!